And moving on to the Gaza Strip, the Hamas-Terror-Group-run Islamic courts releasing a new edict for the enclave, ruling that from now on, all women will require permission from a male guardian to travel, be that from a husband, a brother, or a father. And the permission would further need to be registered with the Islamic courts in Gaza. But beyond the obvious issues in curtailing women's rights, Western media, like the Associated Press, the Washington Post, and the LA Times, are adding fuel to the fire, hinting that apparently the move is somehow Israel's fault. Joining me to explain is CEO of Honest Reporting, Daniel Pomerantz. Daniel, thanks so much for being with us. Now, Honest Reporting was really first to call out the AP and the LA Times, Washington Post, et cetera, for printing the AP's allegations here. What is the reasoning for blaming Israel, and what do you take issue with?
Well, this is a really excellent article written by our editor, Giron Ben-Zvi, and reviewed by Charles Biebelzer, our managing editor, and it's available on our website. They did a great job of researching this. The Associated Press, and this got, of course, picked up by publications all over the world, like the Washington Post and the LA Times, they talked about this horrible law against women by Hamas's Islamic courts.
Right.
And then, in the same sentence, talked about the Israeli blockade as if it were somehow connected. And they do this on purpose. They're being tricky. There's actually a term for this in political science called transfer, when you associate two things by saying them in the same sentence, even though they're completely unrelated. AP did this on purpose because they want to say, well, technically we never said it was Israel's fault, so we didn't say anything wrong. But they talked about something that was entirely unrelated to the situation at hand.
Do you really believe that it's that insidious and pernicious? And you know, could we give them the benefit of the doubt and say, maybe they were just ignorant and they put these two things together?
I don't think so, because there's a pattern. In 2012, Honest Reporting published an article called Israel Made Me Beat My Wife. And this was critiquing The Guardian in the UK, which had written a story saying that when Palestinian men sometimes beat their wives and children, it's actually Israel's fault. In 2016...
I remember reading that, actually.
You remember that one?
Yeah, it was because of Israel's occupation putting stress on Palestinian husbands, they go home and beat their wives.
Right, and then in 2016, the United Nations produced an entire study claiming to prove exactly that. And the people who suffer most from this are Palestinian women,
sure.
Much more so than Israel, because they don't get the attention and the help that they need. So we see this pattern occurring. Honest Reporting calls it out, and then the next pattern is that the journalists who do have an agenda try to get a little bit trickier by using transfer instead of making the claims outright.
So, you know, in Honest Reporting's experience, because again, you guys do this basically all the time, that's your mission. So what sources are really the best and the worst when it comes to getting things right in the Israel-Palestine conflict?
Well, you know, it's not so much a matter of source, but you should look to original source material. Even this article, for example, the AP piece, you can find elements in it and then track them down to the original source. For example, the Hamas Charter in 1988, long before there was any kind of Israeli blockade. This is the charter that's famous for saying that Hamas's purpose for existence is to destroy Israel. But a less-known phrase in that same charter is, and I quote, "Women are important because they manufacture men." You can also find by looking there that in Gaza, violence against women is legal. Sexual violence is legal. Rape is legal as long as it's within the family. Forced child marriages and honor killings are commonplace. None of this made it into the AP article, but the source materials, which is the Hamas Charter itself, can be easily found and then connected to these events. So unfortunately, to get a really good look, you have to do a little bit of digging and legwork. But like I said, and this is the really horrible thing, there is no question, as the AP story does correctly state, that there is a terrible plight for Palestinian women in Gaza and also in the West Bank.
Yeah, that's not being challenged.
Well, but it is, because when you allow political agenda to interfere with telling this story clearly and calling for the world to take action, the Palestinian women are the people who suffer the most.
All right, Daniel Pomerantz, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks, my pleasure.